With the 2021 season practically over, tennis fans have been waiting in anticipation for the year's #1 players to be announced. And since it hasn't been an especially great year for Djokovic, it goes without saying that his supporters are on the very edge of their seats. But what did the completion of the Paris Masters show us? What should you know if you missed it? For all this and more, stay tuned. #1, Novak Djokovic finally announced he would be playing in Paris. First things first, we have to talk about the immaculate recovery that Novak Djokovic showed when he made a late return to the tournament. For those of you who don't know, the Serbian tennis legend found himself between a rock and a hard place this year, unfortunately yielding to the pressure that was placed upon just prior to the Tokyo Olympic Games. You see, having already secured a few high-profile wins, Djokovic was on the road to achieve a feat that only a select few tennis players have ever had the opportunity of striving for. We are, of course, referring to his attempt at sweeping the year and obtaining the elusive Golden Slam title. But unfortunately for the Serbian, it wasn't meant to be. Like a couple of other athletes on the games, Tokyo wasn't kind to him, and he found himself kicked out of both the singles and doubles events due to a lackluster performance. After that loss, things went downhill for Djokovic, who in the end decided to take some much needed time off. And it's a good thing too, as his frustration had seemingly followed him onto the court, resulting in a few controversial blow-ups that stained his name. Fans had no idea how long they would have to wait to see him grace the beautiful game with his presence again. And just a few days before the start of the Paris Masters, Djokovic announced he would be making his return. But had he rested enough? #2, fans cheer as Djokovic secures himself a win at the Masters. That was the question on everyone's mind. Djokovic would have had to compete in order to retain his position as #1 men's single player in the world. But after a poor set of performances leading to his so-called mental break, there's no doubt that more rest was needed. At least, that's what the experts thought. In a true show of brilliance and determination, though, Djokovic made his appearance and went on to dominate the Paris Masters. His first match was against Marton Fucsovics, who found himself being outpaced by the Serbian legend's pinpoint accuracy on the court. And it's not like this was supposed to be a walkover. In fact, Fucsovics had taken 2 sets from Djokovic in the last 2 occasions they faced off against one another, showing that he could get the better of the Serb if he performed well. He then went on to send Monfils, Fritz, and Hurkacz home before setting his sights on Daniil Medvedev in the finals. And since the Russian is currently ranked as the world #2, fans knew that this was going to be a match of legendary proportions. But Djokovic was ready for just about everything that Medvedev was willing to throw at him. After ceding the first set, the Serbian came back with a vengeance, cleaning the floor with Medvedev and securing him the win at the Paris Masters. Just like that, Novak Djokovic was back, and this wasn't the end of his winning streak. #3, the Serbian went on to compete in the doubles event as well. As it turns out, the Serbian also made an appearance in the doubles event alongside fellow countryman Filip Krajinovic. And although it's not often that Djokovic allows himself the opportunity to wow us with a doubles win, and that's exactly what he did in that first match against Alex de Minaur and Luke Saville of Australia. It was a tough match that saw the Serbians having to trudge through a last-minute tiebreak, but in true Djokovic fashion, the legendary player did so, but using every inch of his skill and determination. Why did Novak decide on playing in the doubles event though? Many experts believe that after taking 7 weeks off after his embarrassing loss at the US Open, the tennis player was looking for ways to secure himself a win in the singles event. In other words, his work in the doubles competition was nothing more than practice for what was coming later, and it looks like it worked, with the Serbian eventually walking away with the title. That being said, Djokovic seemed to feel like his performance in the doubles event meant a lot more than that. When asked about his performance after that initial match, he responded by saying he had never played a doubles match in front of such a massive crowd before, and is really happy to play as much tennis as possible to satisfy his fans, who he kept hanging on earlier in the year. #4, Tim Puts and Michael Venus walk away with the doubles title. That's all Djokovic could have really hoped for, considering how he isn't exactly tried and tested doubles player. And with a duo like Tim Puts and Michael Venus in the competition, the Serbians didn't exactly stand a chance. And wouldn't you know it, the German-Kiwi team showed up and swept the floor with every other group they played against, easily clinching the title from the hands of Pierre-Hugues Herbert and Nicolas Mahada in the Rolex Paris Masters doubles finals. And for those of you who don't know, this isn't the only win from the pair in recent history. In fact, they first joined up in June for this year, where their brilliant teamwork led to a win at the the Hamburg European Open, but as you can imagine, nothing quite as big as the Paris Masters. When interviewed after the match, Puig commented on saying that they knew they would have to play their best tennis on the day if they stood a chance of walking away with the title, and it looks like that's what the team ended up doing, eventually beating Herbert and Mahut in an impressive show of skill. Puig and Venus are currently standing in the record of 30-11, and will be looking in the direction of the Nido ATP Finals in the coming days. Suffice to say, they have a pretty impressive season, and according to them, things are just getting started, so we'll have to see what their futures hold. Number 5, Hugo Gaston also made a large impact on the court. Another man who had a fairly good run in Paris was Hugo Gaston, the French professional tennis player who fans have come to like for his bubbly personality off the court. But when it comes to his performance on the court, Gaston is almost always lacking. Guy is rated at number 67 overall, and as a result shouldn't be sweeping other competitors in Paris. But the Frenchman somehow found some skill and determination which were previously missing from his repertoire, allowing him to launch himself into the third round of the Masters to the astonishment of everyone around him. He even went on to beat the likes of Pablo Crayano Busta, who was previously ranked at number 10 in the world. Suffice to say, the 21-year-old tennis player had an incredible run in Paris, despite not making it any further than he did. It's not like he stood a chance of winning with Novak Djokovic in great form, but his performance showed great heart and an ability that is slowly but surely forming over the years. And as you can imagine, this has fans of Gaston pretty excited for what's coming next. Who knows, his time in Paris could very well have been the stepping stone he needed to up his game in ranking. That being said, we'll have to see what the future holds, and can't wait to see whether his next performance is a pleasant surprise as well. Number 6, we also saw an impressive debut in Paris. Last but not least, viewers of the Paris Masters were also able to witness one of the best debuts in recent history. We are, of course, referring to the work put in by Carlos Alcaraz, the 18-year-old Spanish player who is somewhat unknown on the professional circuit at the moment, or at least that was the case until he impressed fans in Paris by putting on an incredible show in his debut game. He was set to take on Pierre Hughes Herbert, who was rated in the 36th position back in 2019, and although Herbert is more of a doubles player now, goes without saying that bookies all around town had their money on him to win. Shockingly enough, Alcaraz showed up with more than his fair share to prove, taking Herbert through almost 3 hours worth of tennis, and in the end he secured his debut win over the Frenchman in an impressive fashion. Suffice to say, Alcaraz is one to watch in the future, with many experts now believing him to be on a championship journey. He has a long way to go, but his future looks bright. And there you have it, all the news coming out of this year's Rolex Paris Masters. What did you think of the tournament though? And is Djokovic finally back from his embarrassing losses earlier in the year? Feel free to let us know in the comments section down below.